Today on an all-new Dr. Phil.
A couple charged with abusing their adopted children.
Believe
you were locked in a room
with just a bucket to go to the bathroom in.
their stories of abuse.
She was dragging me across the room.
We had a meal in the dog yard.
What did you do for food?
We would eat grass, goat food, and bird seed.
How were the parents punished?
1 year in jail.
It's an outrage.
Let's do it.
Have a good show, everybody. Here we go.
This is a safe place to talk about hard things.
Stand by. We'll count you down.
I try to be an emotional compass and point you in the right direction.
5, 4.
I am not giving up on you. How you doing? How are you? How you doing? Today, a story of disturbing abuse. 6 young children claim they were starved, locked in a room with no bathroom, forced to kneel naked on sharp rock, and stand in a feces-covered dog pen. The list of alleged abuses goes on and on. Now, 2 of those children are here today to tell their story of what they say they endured at the hands of this couple, a pair you would think a judge would have thrown the book at. Well, instead of receiving the maximum punishment, these parents were given a 1-year sentence. At trial, Kathleen O'Brien was found guilty of 3 counts of child abuse and 1 count of disorderly conduct. Martin O'Brien was convicted of 4 counts of child abuse. No one was more shocked than Katie and Ryan, who adopted the 2 children, 16-year-old Lonia and 17-year-old Carlina, who you will meet today. They say a 1-year jail sentence is nowhere near enough for the people who they claim tortured Lonia and Carlina for 7 long years.
A local couple charged with abusing their adopted children.
In May 2012, my husband and I were watching the local news and were shocked by what we saw.
Well, the criminal complaint in this case alleges years of abuse by the couple against their 6 adopted children.
These children were locked in a room for up to 4 to 5 days with just a bucket to go to the bathroom in. They would not eat for several days. Their food was locked up.
We would go into the chicken coop and take eggs and eat that raw. We would look for grass and we would eat that.
If we were caught stealing food, we would have to sleep outside for the night.
They were forced to kneel inside of a dog pen, which there were feces everywhere.
My jaw dropped.
On top of all of that, they were also physically abused.
One of the children had been choked.
I was hit with a stick.
Lonia's earlobe was torn by Mrs. O'Brien.
One time, Mrs. O'Brien stabbed me with a pocket knife.
I was speechless. I was undeniably speechless.
I felt really trapped.
I desperately wanted to get out.
Eventually, the O'Brien's parental rights were terminated, and we were able to adopt Lonia and Carlina.
Today, Kathleen and Martin O'Brien heard for the first time in court the charges leveled against them. Now, those charges include allegations of pepper spraying, hitting with sticks, and children being forced to strip naked and go without food.
In July 2015, the O'Briens were found guilty on 7 counts of child abuse. They got 1 year county jail with Huber privileges, which basically means they're free to go to work every day and only spend the night in jail.
I was very irate.
Our children went through years of abuse, and the O'Briens got a slap on the wrist.
Guys, I'm glad to meet you. Glad to have you guys here.
Thank you.
So you now are the adoptive parents of these 2, correct?
Correct. They were placed into foster care with another home, and we did respite, which is kind of like babysitting. So
they came and stayed with you for short periods of time while they were with this other family.
Correct.
Okay. But you didn't know anything about what was going on at the time?
No.
Okay. You 2 have now been with these folks for how long?
About 2 years, I would say.
About 2 years?
Oh.
Yeah. Did you both go at the same time?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So how are things going?
Good.
Yeah? So you're happy where you are at this point?
I am.
Yeah. And how do you two get along?
Like siblings do.
What?
Like siblings, I guess, put at the lightest term.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Now, I always hate to talk about, the terrible things that children go through, but it's my understanding from your parents and from the two of you that you want very much to speak out about this because you want to encourage others that might be in a similar situation to speak out. Hand that to your sister, if you would.
Thank you.
You want to speak out about this, right?
Yes. There are children who still have years and years in abusive families, and they're scared of speaking out because they're scared of consequences. They're scared of more abuse that could happen.
Right.
And a lot of times it takes just one person to stand up and be like, hey, this is what happened to me, and, we spoke out, and now we're trying to help out and make a difference with other children.
Do you feel the same way? Do you feel the same way that you want to speak out about these things?
Yes.
Yeah. Tell me, in your own words, the things that stick out in your mind that you had to go through that you just really couldn't change, you couldn't fight back about.
As I think about it, the physical abuse, the marks that was made at that time, they've healed. But I think the worst abuse is the being left alone for a child, because it makes them feel as, who's gonna help me, and I feel so alone, and so I think as much as physical pain is, physical abuse is bad, I think the worst part is the emotional abuse, because emotional abuse, that's what breaks down a kid. It's not.
And that takes a lot of different forms. Carlene, you say for example, in terms of emotional abuse, you say you were locked in a room the majority of 6 years?
Yes.
And tell me about the room. What were you locked in? What was in there? How would you describe that?
All what was in the room was bunk beds. All of my 6 siblings, we shared one room, so I had 3 different bunk beds in the room, and so I had beds, and it had a trash can, and that was it.
And the trash can was for what?
For us to go to the bathroom.
So, were you able to shower? Were you able to take baths?
Sometimes.
Like how often?
Well, I know we would always take a shower before we went to church. So that would be like Sunday morning. Probably like 2-3 times a week.
And what about food? What did you do for food?
Well, they didn't really feed us.
Yeah.
So I would take food for my siblings.
There were biological children in the home, right?
4.
And you were allowed to watch them eat, but you were not allowed to eat.
Right.
Right. And so where did you get food? How did you get food?
We would eat grass. My older brother showed us what to eat. We lived around like fields, so we would take corn, and one time they planted, I think, soybeans or something, and we would go in our neighbor's lawn and take apples from them. We would eat goat food, cracked corn. We tried raw eggs because we had chickens, and we would eat like peanuts and birdseed.
And why would you not get food out of the refrigerator or the pantry?
They were locked.
They were locked. And if you were caught getting food out of either one of them, what happened?
We would get hit with a belt, depending on how old we were, or we wouldn't be able to eat a meal, or we'd have to stand outside or like kneel. It depended pretty much what they wanted to do to us.
When you say you had to kneel, what do you mean?
We had to kneel in the dog yard, which had like rocks. So we had to kneel in that, and we also had to kneel in our carport, which had like much bigger rocks. And so those were the two main spots we had to kneel at.
And sometimes you would get sick, obviously, because it's terrible nutrition. What happened if you would get sick and vomit?
Well, I mean, I didn't experience it, but I know when my siblings had to, at least I believe they had to eat the vomit.
You were picked up by your neck. Your ear was torn.
Yes.
And how did you wind up getting stabbed with a pocket knife? And later,
It hurts to know that my son may not ever be able to fully trust me. Lonia's told us, I may not ever fully love you.
Tomorrow on an all-new Dr. Phil.
Peyton claimed she was stabbed outside of our house. I do believe that Peyton stabbed herself.
A mystery.
they don't believe their sister.
They don't even listen or give her a chance.
You said these two need to get help.
Tearing a family apart.
It sounds crazy, I know.
All the time she was lying and she knew it.
Oh my God, this is horrible.
Were you attacked, or did in fact you stab yourself?
That's tomorrow.
You were picked up by your neck.
Yep.
And your ear was torn.
Yes.
How was your ear torn?
It was, Mrs. Bryan grabbed it and just kind of dragging me across the room.
By your ear?
By my ear as she held it. Next thing I know is it hurts, and go touch it, and it's, you know, there's some little blood dripping down, and I noticed that there's a tear, a rip, so.
And how did you wind up getting stabbed with a pocket knife?
It was, us two and one of our older sisters, we were locked outside. We went inside get, you know, whatever it was. It ended up, it was in the living room. It was on Mr. Ryan's desk, which he hasn't used, and that's where he puts all the, you know, a lot of the stuff that he takes away from us. And so he had a drawer open, you know, and I saw this pocket knife in there. I was like, hey, you know, what's this? It looked cool. I took it outside, started playing with it, cutting down grass. Mrs. O'Brien, she was gone at that time, and she came home and she asked me, what do you have in your hand? I opened up my hand, I'm like, this is what I have. I thought it looked cool. So we walked over to the patio, and then she's like, well, if you want this so bad, you can have it. She took it and she started actually, it wasn't nice and quick. She took it and she was slowly forcing it into my palm. And she was like, here, you can have it. And soon felt pain, and there was good slice in my hand and enough to draw blood. So
when that's happening, what do you say to yourself? I mean, did you say to yourself, this is not okay?
As a child, I thought, well, I see I did something wrong, and this is the punishment. I didn't really see it as, oh, this is bad. This isn't supposed to happen to a kid. Because I was in that situation, I thought this was the punishment. And so I accepted it as it was with, so.
You all have talked about having to stand outside and watch through the window while the family ate.
I don't really know what.
I mean, do you say, why am I out here instead of in there? Do you think, did you know that was wrong? Did you know that was cruel? Or did you think that was just punishment as well?
No, now you say because we always, as we stood outside, we watched them eat. We all, we're like, this isn't fair, Sometimes we do that, sometimes for biological kids do some of the same things we do, and here they are inside eating. They have TVs in their room. They're all loaded with these privileges. And here we are trying to follow every single rule they have for us.
Katie says that after Lonia and Carlina learned they were permanently free of their abusive adoptive parents, even more stories of shocking abuse surface. We'll talk about all that when we come back.
They were forced to sleep in the bed with dirty dishes if they didn't finish the dishes in time. Lonia told me while cleaning the sink one day that Mrs. O'Brien poured Comet in his mouth and was forced to swallow it.
And later...
And I struggle with it because I still love them and I miss them. I have to try to move on and know that what they did to me was wrong. I'll never get my childhood back.
Once the children felt safe in our home, they began to open up more about the abuse that they experienced. They were forced to sleep in the bed with dirty dishes if they didn't finish the dishes in time.
One day when I was using Comet to clean the bathroom, I had used a little too much, and when Mrs. O'Brien came into the room, she poured Comet into my mouth and I had to hold it there.
It was the worst case of abuse I have ever heard. There is absolutely no words. It's beyond absurd. It's unfathomable.
And where were you born?
I was born in Russia.
And where were you born?
I was born in Guatemala.
When you heard you were coming to America, did you think it was going to be great?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I was little, but I mean, being adopted kind of makes you feel like you're wanted.
And then get this. Well, since Carlina and Lonia's parents were charged in May for 23 counts of felony child abuse and misdemeanor disorderly conduct, Russia has tightened their adoption rules after 19 Russian children died in American homes over the last decade. 4 of the kids the O'Briens adopted came from Russia. This is, what did you think when he says he used too much Comet and had to put it in his mouth? How do you hear that?
He was doing the dishes one day, and he just said, "Hey, Mom, I had to put Comet in my mouth once because I didn't do the dishes fast enough." And I sit there and I let him talk about it, and I reassure to him that that is nothing ever is going to happen like that with us.
Ryan, you hear this stuff, Doesn't it make you just want to get in the car and just drive over there and just drag them out in the yard?
You know, it does, but then am I any better than them?
Yeah, I mean, that's...
I'm not showing Lonia how to handle his emotions if I just haul off and punch every person that's hurt them.
Has it been hard to build a trust bond with him?
Yes, Lonia's grown a lot in the last 2 years, but he's told us, you know, I may not ever fully love you. And I understand that. It hurts to know that my son may not ever be able to fully trust me, but it's understandable.
We're these children's third parents. Third. We know that there's going to be bumps along the way. We know that. But every person that sees our children never in a million years would have thought that this is something they went through. They are such good kids.
Do you two feel safe in their home?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you wake up in the morning feeling safe?
Yes.
Do you feel like it's home?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's home?
Yeah.
Do you feel like you belong?
Most days.
What's the hardest thing that continues to pull at you?
When I do something wrong, I tend to not handle it super well. I usually think I'm not good enough for this stuff.
And later,
I've been watching the faces of this audience, some in tears, some gasping in horror. You know, I've got 4 kids, and I think I share the feeling of every parent here of utter horror and disgust.
When I was finally taken away from the house, I was kind of surprised that Katie and Ryan came, that we didn't have to deal with the abuse anymore. I feel a lot better knowing that I am safe and can come home.
The worst experience living with the O'Briens was they were hurting me all the time, but then at the same time, they would always tell me that they love me. Katie and Ryan make me feel really happy and loved, and I have support. Being adopted was a fresh start for me.
what's the hardest thing that continues to pull at you?
I think the hardest is thinking that I'm not the best, I'm not the best person. I can't make everyone happy. And it's like, for me, I try doing everything in my will, If someone needs something, I'm going to try, every single last breath to go do it, finish it, and do it right. So I think for me it's, knowing that I can't make everyone happy, I can't make everyone happy whenever, they ask. So I think it's just something I kind of have to accept too, saying I'm not, thinking that, because I usually think I'm not I'm not good enough for this stuff. When I do something wrong, I tend to not handle it super well, tend to punish myself in, not the most professional manner.
He's very hard on himself.
Yeah, I get it.
But just him waking up every morning is good enough.
Yeah. What's the hardest thing for you in putting all this behind you and moving on and accepting that you're in a loving home?
The hardest things for me is I'll never get my childhood back. And I try to remember the good times with them, and I try to forget the bad, but it's like really hard because mainly my childhood wasn't good. And I struggle with it because I still love them and I miss them. But yet I have to try to move on and know that what they did to me was wrong.
Mm-hmm. But you have mixed feelings about them. Mm-hmm. Are you building a bond with these folks?
I am.
Mm-hmm. And are you confident that that will build in the future?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. What's your dream for the future? What do you want to do with your life?
Well, my dream is to join the Peace Corps. Because like since I got help, I feel like I should help other people. And when I heard the Peace Corps and I looked up stuff, I want to join the Peace Corps.
Mm-hmm. How about you?
That's a loaded question. As a little kid, I've always wanted to go into the military. My oldest brother is in the Marines now, and he is in active duty. That is something I've always wanted to do, but I'm still trying to look farther in. As right now, I have interest in joining the U.S. Army as Special Forces in the Rangers group. So I'm hoping that once I graduate high school, that's what I can do. Mm-hmm. Then after that, I want to do law enforcement, try helping those who need the help. So.
What is baffling is that you have these parents who seem to have raised 4 biological children perfectly normally, and yet these other children have been treated little better than rats.
Friday on Dr. Phil. The murder.
High-profile constant murder case.
The trial.
Convicted for the murder of Teresa Halbach.
The Netflix documentary that's making waves all the way to the White House.
Hundreds of thousands of people are calling for the pardon of a convicted killer.
Now, Dr. Phil investigates making a murderer.
Some things took place in this case I've never even heard of.
The exclusive interview with the sheriff.
Did you say it would have been a whole lot easier to just kill Stephen Avery than to frame him?
Yes.
What he wants Dr. Phil to know.
You think if Avery got out today, he would be dangerous?
Absolutely. I think he would kill again.
You have not spoken about this before. Why speak about it now?
That's Friday.
I want to introduce someone to this conversation who is equally outraged with this story. He is a good friend of mine. TheDailyMail.com is one of the most visited news websites in the world, pulling from 1,000 stories and 10,000 photos filed daily. This global phenomenon has 75 million unique visitors a month. In the United States alone, they cover everything from news to sports to crime to celebrity and pop culture. Yeah, I know it is my favorite on the web. I wake up to it every day. I go back to it every day. And one of the favorite things that I look at is what is written by this man. Joining me today is the outspoken editor-at-large, Piers Morgan. Piers, you've been listening to these inspirational and delightful kids. What's your gut level?
Well, first of all, thank you to both of you, and congratulations on the courage that you've shown to come on national television and talk about this, because I can see, particularly with you, the effect this has had on you. You'd probably hide it better, because you're a guy, right? But it's horrific to listen to. I also want to thank you both for giving them really what they should have had. What have I been feeling out the back there? I've been watching the faces of this audience, some in tears, some gasping in horror. I've got 4 kids, and I think I share the feeling of every parent here of utter horror and disgust that these young kids have come over from other countries, Guatemala, Russia, wherever it may be. The American dream is about offering people like this a new chance in life. That's what it's always been to me. What is baffling about this case is you have these parents who seem to have raised 4 biological children perfectly normally, without any sense of abuse, giving them, as we heard, all the treats in life that you would expect caring parents to give. And yet these other children who've been brought over and put into this household had been treated little better than rats. And I find that baffling. I don't really understand it. There's no consistency to that. But I hope they're watching this. I really hope they're watching this, because no parent should ever treat, foster, adoptive, biological, should ever treat children like this. They have been treated disgustingly. And I'm just so grateful that you've managed to come through this and be so charming and be so honest and be so brave. But, you know, I look at the way you responded to what are you going to do next, both of you, actually. And I felt such inspiration and hope for both of you. And I hope for the others who've been rescued now from that situation, that actually you now can live the American dream in the way it was always intended for you. And that America can turn out to be not the curse that it's been so far, but actually be the great country you hoped it would be for you.
All right, we're going to take a break. What I want to tell these parents when we come back, and I want to hear what Pierce thinks about the sentence that was handed down by the judge. We'll be right back. Piers Morgan of the Daily Mail is here, along with Katie and Ryan, the parents of 2 amazing and inspirational teenagers who have been through so much and came here today to tell any child experiencing abuse to speak out. You know, Lonia, when you were saying that you were standing there thinking, well, this is just my punishment, and you now know it was not punishment, it was abuse, just your saying that, a child hearing that can say, wow, this isn't punishment, this is abuse. I need to tell somebody at school, a counselor, at church, or whatever. That is so valuable for both of you to speak out. Pierce, the 2 parents here were charged with multiple felonies. A judge came in and assigned them both a sentence of 1 year in county jail with privileges, which meant they just sleep in the jail. During the day, they can go to work, they can go by and check the house, they can do whatever. They just have to come check in at night and sleep there for 1 year. I think 3 years probation, done. What message does that send to the international adoption community about fairness, justice, and protection of children that are sent to America?
Well, look, the message it sends is that it's a complete shambles and it's a disgrace. And the reason that's so important is that it has directly impacted on the way that countries like Russia are now viewing adoption by American families of young Russian children. You know, you said yourself 19 children have died, I think, in the hands of American families who've come over from Russia. And when they hear about stories of abuse like this, they have a high expectation, as I would coming from Great Britain, that the American justice system would stand up to the highest beacon that we expect it to, and justice would be seen to be done. What's extraordinary about this case is that it seemed like justice was whirring the right way, that the system was working, that the abuse had been recognized, identified, the charges were correct, and that these people were going to be punished properly for what they had done, for the sickening litany of abuse they'd meted out to these kids. And at the last minute, a new judge comes in, and he determined an extraordinary thing. He said that the mental and psychological abuse, which was dominant in this case, rather than harsh physical abuse, was actually, to him, as someone who dealt with many abuse cases, not as bad. That he was used to kids with broken arms and bruising and all this kind of thing. As if somehow physical abuse carries worse scars than mental abuse. I actually think mental scars live with you for life. I mean, one of the most powerful moments to me in the earlier interview that you did was when this brave young chap just said, you know, the worst thing is just being left alone. The negligence that was going on, thrown into these locked rooms for days on end, fed grass so they could get their hands on some of it. That isn't physical abuse. That isn't somebody taking a stick and beating them in a way that this judge appears to think is the only abuse that matters. And for that reason, this judge has made, in my view, a catastrophic error of judgment. And he's done it for completely the wrong reasons. And as a result, everybody here has been cheated of proper justice. So, in short, Dr. Phil, it's an outrage.
There is research on the books in the psychological literature where you look at the adjustment levels of those that have been through physical versus mental emotional abuse. They will tell you, I would much rather get a black eye than have my spirit broken. Closed captioning provided by...
Hi, you look good.
Thank you. I feel good. It all starts with eating right. That's why I eat Amazing Prunes now.
Sunsweet Amazing Prunes, the feel-good fruit.
Want to know what's coming up on Dr. Phil? Visit our website and subscribe to our email newsletter. You'll get weekly updates, life strategies, and exclusive video that you won't find anywhere else.
Plus, on drphil.com, you can see sneak previews of upcoming shows. Log on today.
You know, Robin and I are national spokespersons for an organization called Court-Appointed Special Advocates, CASA. And it is an organization where, you know, social workers have 10 times more files than they can manage. And court-appointed special advocates are people just like everybody here in this audience that go through some training, and then they are assigned 1 or 2 kids a year where they visit the homes. They go with them through court appearances. They do things where they put their arm around a child's shoulder, and they're there to really look and see what's going on. And it makes all the difference in the world. Unfortunately, there are 500,000 kids in foster care that don't have a CASA representative, and it can really cut through and stop this kind of thing from happening. So there are mechanisms in place to help. We just don't have enough. I mean, Robin, we need, what, another 500,000 volunteers, right?
Yes, they're so important and they're so needed. And I was just sitting here thinking about the CASA volunteers, how important they are. And when you were both speaking, I thought of how important you are and what a statement you have been making today. What you said has made such a difference for all of the children out there when they leave those homes where they are feeling trapped, where they're being beaten, where they're being held captive. Maybe you have given them the courage to walk up to someone and tell them what they're going through and what is being done to them. If they don't have a CASA volunteer, they have you. They have the courage you have given them today to speak up and tell them what's being done to them. And I applaud you, and I thank you so much.
And let me say, most foster parents are very loving and caring parents that open their homes because they've opened their hearts. So I don't want to paint all foster parents with a black brush. And listen, look into CASA. If you go to drphil.com, there's going to be a link there. You can be a CASA volunteer. You don't have to have money. You don't have to have a lot of time. You can really make a difference for kids like these. You want to touch life, this is a place to do it. And we're just such strong advocates for that. We've got to stop. I want to thank all of my guests today. A special thanks to Piers Morgan from the Daily Mail. I just love the way this guy tells it. We'll see you next time. Ronia, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you both so much. Piers, thank you. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much. Hey everyone, Dr. Phil here. I hope you're enjoying the new year. Carlina, Lonia, when I met you on the show, you were both so inspiring. I was struck by how motivated and focused on your future you both are, despite what has happened in your past. Now, because of that, I want to help you succeed. Now, Carlina, you said you dream of serving in the Peace Corps and traveling the world. So we've made some calls and arranged a special one-on-one, face-to-face meeting with the Peace Corps' people so you can take the first steps in making that dream a reality. Now, Lonia, you said you'd love to be in law enforcement. Well, guess what? We've arranged to get you a head start. Your local police department are going to take you on a ride-along. You'll help them keep your area safe, and you'll see everything that police officers face firsthand. But no one should be all work and no play. So I'm also giving you and your entire family some much-deserved fun. Once you're both done learning about saving the world and catching the bad guys, I'm going to send your entire family on an all-expense-paid vacation. Cool. That's right, all 8 of you. Hey, I know it's cold and snowy in Wisconsin, but leave your hats and boots at home and pack your swimsuits because we're going to fly your entire family to sunny Florida. Club Med Sandpiper Bay in Port St. Lucia, Florida, is providing a signature all-inclusive 5-night stay that includes many land and water sports activities with plenty for kids to do. Volleyball, tennis, sailing, and more. So are you guys ready for some fun? Yeah. Enjoy yourselves and take some pictures because I want to hear all about your trip when you get back. Deal? Deal. Okay, Dr. Phil signing off. Have a great trip. So long.
Thank you, Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil, we appreciate all you have done for our family. These kids are so excited about their upcoming trip. Thank you for believing in them and letting them tell their story. Meeting you was one of the greatest experiences of our lives. It was truly unforgettable.